It is always game day in Cleveland. He is Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Bass. All right, Daryl, we've got plenty of other things we can talk about, especially when it comes to the Browns. And I want to remind you that today's episode, as always, is brought to you locally by Smiley One and Bryant. That's right, Northeast Ohio's heating and cooling experts. So, Daryl, anything before we get to what I want to talk about? Big awards again, Special Teams Player of the Week and Defensive Player of the Week.
Yes, of course. A quick reminder that sports betting is legal here in the state of Ohio, and BetQL is ready to help you make the most informed bets possible. You can get all of today's winners by heading to BetQL.com or by downloading the BetQL app. Claim your free 3-day trial today. Head to BetQL.com/news/923 The Fan for all of those exclusive sportsbook offers.
All right, Daryl, even before I get to the awards, we didn't even get into PJ Walker. So he has now been added to the regular roster. He will start this week. And how is that going over in the locker room?
Well, we got all this news after we got in the locker room. So we'll find out tomorrow how things are going in the
All right, then how's it going in Berea?
But look, I mean, the numbers are ugly. He's completing 50% of his passes. He's got 3 interceptions, no touchdowns, almost had a fumble thanks to the flag. That got, wiped off the board. They're going to need a defense really to carry him. They're going to probably have to pare down the offense a little bit for him as well. I asked Kevin Stefanski, the difference between this year and last year, because remember last year with Jacoby Brissett, they had to run a completely different offense than what they wanted to run for Deshaun Watson.
Great point. It was a great point today.
And now, I was trying to get Kevin to talk about what changes he has to make for PJ Walker, if any. It doesn't seem that there's too many. It does feel like it's pared down a little bit offensively, Andy, but I don't know that it's as drastic. But the other complication is PJ Walker is not giving you what Jacoby Brissett gave you a year ago either, as far as, performance. I mean, God bless him. He's going out there. He's busting his ass. He's doing the best he can do. He's been put in difficult situations a couple of times here, which, as Kevin talked about on Wednesday, that's, hey, that's the life of being a backup quarterback in the National Football League. But a reminder, he's on the active roster now because they were out of elevations. So they had to use a 53-man roster spot to sign him off the practice squad to the 53. And now we don't have to worry about it going forward. He is the number 2 quarterback. As far as whether or not they're going to make any quarterback changes, doesn't sound that way. Stefanski flat out said, when asked, we feel good about the group that we have. And I will say this, when Kevin tends to say that, they don't make changes. Like historically, when you go back, right, because it's a very ambiguous answer. You got a lot of room, things that
we debated this too. Yeah.
Things can always change, right? Andrew Berry could, pull a rabbit out of his hat and, make a trade or something like that.
Well, I mean, you never know. You got the trade deadline coming up, and general managers are talking every day. So October 31st. So, but
the whole thing is typically though, when Kevin Stefanski says they feel good about the group they have, they don't make changes in the room.
Gotcha.
Historically. So remains to be seen there. And again, I think a lot of this has to do with the proper diagnosis of the timeline for Deshaun. Like if Deshaun's back for Arizona, right? Or if he's back for Baltimore, do you need to go out and get a quarterback? That's a tough decision to make, right? But if he's going to be out even longer, then I would say you got to go get a quarterback because you can't allow this to derail this season. For as good as this defense is, Andy, I don't know if it's realistic to expect that they're just going to carry the freight for the rest of the season. You're going to have games like you had Sunday in Indianapolis where they're going to give up 450 yards. They're going to give up points. In this case, they gave up 38 points. Like that's going to happen. Now, they also created 4 turnovers, right? Gave the offense plenty of additional opportunity. Thank God for Dustin Hopkins with his, 50-yard bombs that he's been hitting with regularity. 7 of them ties Phil Dawson for a franchise record in a single season. Broke an NFL record for most consecutive weeks hitting 50-yard field goals with 5 in a row or whatever. But they're in a very, very tough spot because of this Watson injury.
Yeah, no, I believe, everything you're saying, it makes things difficult. You're expecting the defense to do a lot more than you would most other defenses. And speaking of defenses, Myles Garrett was named the Defensive Player of the Week, and he said it, Hopkins for the second week in a row garners the special teams player of the week. Both of those awards, well deserved.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Hopkins, what's interesting about him, he came to town, and this was like my biggest reservation about him when the Browns acquired him was like distance, right? Because his career numbers, he was 50% from beyond 50 yards. And my whole take on the kicking situation was they needed a weapon at that spot. Like that was a spot where they needed a dude that could consistently nail field goals from beyond 45 yards. Because let's be honest about it, it's just reality. You're going to have drives that are going to stall around that 30-yard line. So you want to be able to at least get 3 points consistently out of those. And he has been absolutely fantastic. It was interesting listening to him talk on Wednesday where he talked about, I've been in situations where I haven't gotten a lot of shots consistently at the 50-yard field goals. Whereas like here in Cleveland, I have, you know what I mean? And he said that has actually helped him a little bit. And then, then if you miss a 50-yard, then the coach doesn't want to go back to you, right? So they become shy about trying those field goals and things like that. Whereas he's earned the trust of Kevin Stefanski. That's why he ran him out there for that 58-yarder. He had that thing from 65. So he really has turned into a weapon for this football team and a very important one because right now this offense with PJ Walker running the show, oh man, like it's hard for them to score touchdowns. Thank God they got Kareem Hunt. I love Nick Harris lining up at fullback in front of him. I hope that that's something that we see again. Obviously, you can't get too tendency heavy. They ran that particular one to the left. They're going to need to run that probably sometimes to the right. Although, the right side of your line with DeJuan Jones and Wyatt Teller, you feel really, really good about that. But yeah, I mean, as far as like the passing game goes, I feel like the only way they're going to score touchdowns is if Amari Cooper, David Njoku, DPJ, like dudes catch footballs and they make plays and they score touchdowns that way. Like I'm not looking for PJ Walker to be dropping dimes in the back corner of the end zone on fades.
But Daryl, the only issue I have with Nick Harris playing fullback, which I'm good with it, is that
I'm not
they
saying
don't
on
have
a regular basis. I'm just
no. Look, I like it when they throw the defensive guys in there at fullback. None of that bothers me. I think it's creative, and I think it's probably one of the things that people don't pay attention to, but it really is effective. I think it's great. My only worry when Nick Harris goes out there is you really, I mean, let's be honest, you only have 3 guys on any given day to back up that offensive line: James Hudson, Nick Harrison, and Luke Whippler. I mean, that's the only thing that kind of caught my eye. I was like, okay, I like it. I like the fact he's doing this, but the depth, the second team depth at the offensive line is something that scares me. In fact, we were talking about
doing right now, don't you?
What? Say that again.
You know what you're doing right now, don't you?
I'm looking for more offensive linemen, or I'm jinxing them.
You're living in your fears.
Well, I'm okay.
You can't play this game with fear, Baskin.
I'm not playing with fear. I want them to pick up another offensive lineman, or maybe what's going on with Leatherwood. I don't know. But I'd feel better if I saw 4 backup offensive linemen on game day. That's all.
Yeah, I don't
think it's crazy to go in and think, okay, I've got backups on the offensive line.
Have 4 backup offensive linemen up. I don't know if that's possible. You got to have.
You mean for the Browns or any team?
No, for any team. You need a backup guard, you need a backup tackle, and a backup center. 3.
You lose 2, you're in big trouble.
Oh, I know.
I mean, we all know it. I don't know why teams would play so thin on that.
Yeah, I know. And we know the recent history of the Browns, unfortunately, with the offensive line, they have been banged up up front. But kudos to those guys, man. I don't think Bill Callahan gets enough love nationally for how good of a coach he is. How consistent the Browns offensive line has been under Stefanski. It's consistently been a strength of the team. Sure, there's been a position here or there, Jedrick Wills, where you're not all that confident or sure what you're going to get from down to down, but just by and large, it just seems like no matter who they plug in because of injury, that player steps in and play. Like they just always seem to go out there and play well. And I think Bill Callahan deserves a tremendous amount of credit for that. And also the success that the Browns have had running the football over the last couple of years. Yes, I know they had Nick Chubb, and Chubb makes guys miss and whatnot, but the pull schemes that they use, and that I think that they're superb, and the execution of those schemes has been just as superb.
All right, Daryl, you know what? I'm going to wait. We'll do this next segment because I want to talk to you about what Jim Irsay said today, and then we'll get into Lakefront development. So we'll talk about that. It's always game day in Cleveland. That's coming up next.